everyone. Welcome to the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. I'm Ray, your audiobook reviewer, and I will be reviewing some recent and classic LitRPG audiobooks for you today. Today, I'm going to begin with one of my favorites, War Aeternus 2, Sacrifices by Charles Dean, narrated by Jeff Hayes and Annie Ellicott. The book's length is 14 hours and 13 minutes.
Looking out at the empty sands, he was kind of surprised that there weren't many spectators. In fact, the seats were barely 10% full.
"Not even a weapon?"
he heard one of the audience members call down.
"They must really hate you."
"Yeah, you figure?" Lee looked up to find a human eating some type of food that he had never seen before, something he assumed was the equivalent of popcorn.
"Don't worry, he's in there somewhere,"
the guard called to him with mock assurance. "Huh? He's in here somewhere?" Lee muttered aloud. The timing of the warning was fortunate. The moment he looked back to the sands, he saw a red, semi-transparent liquid shoot up from the ground beneath him. He did his best to dodge by jumping back, but he wasn't fast enough, and the liquid still grazed his right arm. Lee hadn't expected it to sting so badly or deal 13 points of damage the moment it struck him, given that it was just a dark red liquid, so the damage notification came as a bit of a surprise. He watched with a mixture of fascination and horror as the clothes around the wound corroded, though they didn't completely disintegrate, and the cloth became riddled with holes.
"What the hell?"
Lee grabbed the burn on his arm with his opposite hand, still feeling the sting. He studied the creature in front of him and realized that it was nothing more than a voluminous pile of gelatinous red slime.
So, you know what this means, right? War Aeternus, it means it's Miller time! We are going to have a discussion, but we can't do that without a nice cold Miller beer! Prop guy, bring me the beer! Oh, thank you, Prop guy. I have been waiting to tell you the story about War Aeternus 2, but first I must have a repast of justice with Miller beer. What is this? This is root beer. And it's not even a can, it's a bottle. I said, I want Miller beer in a can. Prop guy, we are going to have words. Words like fired. Words like buried alive. Words like, I don't understand what is wrong with you. What do you want from me? I said beer, bring me beer!
What do you want? I'm only 15. I can't even legally buy alcohol.
That is a valid point. Okay. I will settle for the root beer this time. Prop guys. Cannot trust the prop people. Anyway, holy cow. As much as I have enjoyed The Bathrobe Night by Dean and Haygood, the bearded Lord of Bacon and Booze has really created a brilliant series in which a regular Joe named Lee finds out that he's related to a powerful god named Augustus, and that he has to participate in a competition between gods and their heralds known as the Faith Game. I loved Book 1, but honestly, Book 2 completely amped up the story and made it so much better as it progressed, far more than I would have ever hoped. Dean has upped his game to some severe pro-level points. I'm talking he went from playing Old Maid to strip poker overnight. The writing is far improved. The story is much tighter. The characters are so interesting. I really cannot say just how much I have enjoyed the Paladin of Justice Miller and Lee, the MC, as people. You really get to know a lot about them this go-around. And the rest of the party, well, more importantly, you learn about them as well. But Lee learns how to magic up some of his most delicious beer that anybody has ever tasted. Lee and Augustus still have a lot of issues in the relationship, although I begin to sense that the old shapeshifter has more to him than he lets on. Lee finally finds a gal pal back in the real world and finds out that her family may just be the right fit for him, even if they did try to kill him. Now, this book really hits its stride with the arena battles, and Lee learns to adapt and adopt and improvise on his feet in order to survive. The big bad for this book is another herald, and Lee has no idea of what he's getting himself into. And Augustus, when he decides to take down this herald. Still, it's all good fun. Or is it? I'm not going to lie. We do have some tragedy here that cannot be downplayed, nor would I want to. And it really lends some gravitas gravitas that book 1 was needing. It did choke me up and made me feel for Lee in a way that I have not sympathized with the character in a long time. And this harkens back to Bathrobe Night 3, where I was saying there was really an emotional need or something big to happen. I hope this was going to be what happened with Kaz. Well, we have a tragedy that happens to Lee, and it really impacts everything that's going to go forward. We also get to know about Miller's own backstory, which is incredibly tragic and sad as well. It's a nightmare, and you wonder how he even stands on his feet after everything he's been through. So you get to see just how deranged Dean can be to his characters, how merciless. I really love it. For me, the best scene came with the confrontation of the team as they were trying to escape with the Lady Furball attacking them. She was hands down the best fun, crazy psycho character I've heard or read about in 10 years, flat, no doubt about it. She was written and played perfectly, like a master Stradivarius. Man, I'm telling you what, Dean is on fire, okay? There's no question about that. The narration here is proof to me that two people can make an entire world come alive. Jess Hayes, the mystical, vocal master of arts, and Annie Ellicott combine their powers, talents, and skills into one amazing audible adventure. Without a doubt, my favorite voice in this book is Hayes' Miller. If I hear him for more than 30 seconds, I spend the rest of my day talking to everyone like him. And the fools think I'm just doing an Arnold impression. No, I am doing Miller. Annie really pulls at your heartstrings in this book. And this is twice now that she has really almost made me cry. And I am no girly man. You cannot ask for better. And it was nice to see the pair of them handling things rather than a whole squad of people narrating. This really felt like a narration rather than a production, and it's just what I'm looking for. It was spot on perfect. Now, the book itself has some startling revelations and simultaneously creates new mysteries. Lee learns how to handle his magic and yet realizes he doesn't know enough yet. He does a lot more than just creating golems now. So we get to see some serious growth, development, powering up in this book. And all signs point to book 3 being bigger and better, and even crazier. If half the stuff I've heard about it is true, man, it's going to be a ride like a roller coaster that has no stop at the end. And Dean has really been promoting a new character in book 3, Jade. So I fully expect some joy feelings when book 3 hits. All I know is that I will be around as long as Dean keeps pumping out quality material like this. Don't miss the train. Get on board before we leave the station. Final score, 8.25 stars. Keep bringing the bacon, oh bearded one. You are bad to the bone. And remember, Miller rules! Oh, okay. So the next book I'm going to read is Akillia's Reign, Puatera Online Series Book 4. Written by Dawn Chapman. Hey, Dawn. Narrated by Annalise Rennie. And it is 9 hours and 48 minutes long.
Then, there, at the top of the stairs, stood a gentleman in a long, flowing, hooded cloak. I couldn't say it was black, because it didn't really look black, but it moved, swirled, and changed around him. It was as if it were part of him. We stepped into the building, and the door closed behind us. I sucked in a breath and waited as he took the stairs down to us. The first thing I noted was his long, curling, dark horns. Yes, just like any demon male you could think of. I noted the cut of his hair, the fall where it landed, draping just about his eyes, covering them so I couldn't see him properly. Then, as he reached the bottom, he removed his hood and looked towards me, the hair parting deftly. I could see he wasn't at all human, but his eyes, I'd never seen anything like them. They weren't really eyes, but empty sockets of swirling mists.
Now, if I'm going to come clean, I have to admit right out of the gate, I should say, that Dawn Chapman is one of the first LitRPG authors I've ever read. She counts amongst Blaze Corvin, Dakota Kraut, William Morand, and just you name them, and there's a lot of people there, which that's fantastic company to keep. The first 3 books of Puatera were really different than your standard LitRPG fare, insofar that it actually focused on an NPC named Maddie who was just trying to get by and keep some people she held near and dear safe. Now, those were some really good books. First 3 books are amazing, and I really, really enjoyed them a lot, and I couldn't wait for the next book to come out. But Dawn did something crazy. First, she slips away from Maddie in her new book. What? We just got to know Maddie and she's gone. Then she does something pretty cool. She triples the length of the book compared to the first 3 Puatera stories. Each of those first 3 stories are 3 hours long. This one is 9. So she triples, basically, the time that you get to spend in this world with this character. And finally, she ditched Andrea Parsnow in favor of a new narrator. Now, if you know Mr. Ray, you'd say, Mr. Ray, out of total respect, I know that leaving behind characters and narrators who have done beautiful work in the past in favor of some new characters and narrative perspectives is just plain craziness in your eyes. And I would say you are completely correct, because that is exactly how I feel. You just don't do that. That'll upset my stomach. It really gets me ill. And so I have to say, first of all, I'm really touched at your concern for me and my welfare and my feelings. But I have to say this. I really like the longer book length. And I have to say, if you have to give a character new perspective and you need to give it a new voice, and replacing Andrea is okay, because Annalise Rennie is a really good choice. She gives the series that new voice, figuratively and literally. And I like Maddie belonging to Andrea anyway. I think that's kind of her character. You don't take away people. It's kind of like Matt Smith with Riversong in Doctor Who. If you're a fan of Doctor Who, Matt Smith was very protective once he left the show. He was like, please don't let Riversong be with anybody else. And of course they didn't listen. But that was his character. That was his character. And he didn't want to see her shared with anybody else. I'm the same way. Maddie is Andrea's character. Akillia is Annalise's. And I can handle that. I think you have a thing for narrators with names that begin with the letter A, now that I think about it, Dawn. Anyway, the story itself is already centered in a familiar place if you've read the first 3 books. And so we flow into the story rather than being swept away. Emma, or Akillia, the MC, is a complete newbie. And she is one of those cliches that she's special in the story somehow. But considering the population size of the other players, it's really not all that hard to swallow, because it's not a great big population of characters. And if it blows up, she may not be quite so special. And I've always appreciated that Dawn keeps the crunchy stuff to a minimum in her books, especially since in the first books, it was the NPC that was the star. So if you take that in consideration, you really don't have to have a lot of stats flying by, because I doubt NPCs ever saw that. Now here, Akillia is a character and a player, but it still manages to feel organic. And that's the important thing. It's very, very organic. And I think that spouting numbers will just kind of break the flow that she achieves in the narrative. And she plays this riff out with, with rather than having constant numbers fly by, take 45 hit points, 10 hit points, this and that. There's a part where Akillia gets driven crazy by constant pangs, and it's pretty funny, and it plays out really well. Now, the really nice thing is that the world building is pretty much already done at this point, and all Dawn needs to do is tell her amazing story, which is exactly what she does. Chapman's attention to detail is pretty legendary, and she never fails to make details interesting rather than verbose and boring. I mean, it's detail, but it's there for a purpose, and it's fun to understand. The whole story is well written and full of adventure. Annalise Rennie is not Andrea P., but she does manage to hold her own. She does give each character their own distinctive voice, but there are a couple of audio niblets or hiccups that I noticed. Nothing major, though, and nothing I'm going to fault for in the long term. But I did really like her characterization of Akillia, and I can see why Dawn opted to give the new spin-off a distinctive voice. This is my first time listening to Annalise, I do believe. And if I have listened to her in the past, I'm sorry. I listen to a lot of books, and if I don't hear you over and over again, you may not stick in my head. But I think I'm going to be happy to hear her in the future when they go to the next book in this particular series. If they continue on, I'd be happy to listen to her again. My final score is 7.5 out of 10, because I did find the tutorial part just a bit draggy. There were those few audible flubs. There was a weak love story, and I have to say, Dawn, and I say this to everybody, not just to Dawn Chapman in particular, not every story has to have a love interest. Maddie's love interest was organic, and it grew over time, and it really felt natural. This just felt like a love interest to have a love interest. And that's fine. That's your writing and that's your story. I just think it was a little weak for what we were doing otherwise. And I also have a bit of jealousy for not keeping up with Maddie's story full on, although it does refer back to events in the first 3 books. I really, really, really look forward to more in the series. And I know that book 5 is available. I'll be getting that soon, and I'll review it as soon as I can. There's a lot of already reviews out there that I have to get through first. And I haven't gotten it yet, but it is next on my list. And trust me, if it's anything like this, you will love it too. But I'm going to tell you, Akilla's story is really, really good. Don't pass it up. Go out, get the books 1 through 3. It's 9 hours. You can read them all in one day and then go to the next one and enjoy it just as well. So take my word for it. Don't miss out on Puatera. All right. My next book that I'm going to review is Difficulty Legendary by Greg Horlock. It's narrated by Guy Williams, and it has a length of 2 hours and 57 minutes.
As the shuttle pulled to a stop outside Fuse Tech, I couldn't help but think how smooth the tracks were here. Back in Grossthorn Section 8, the grids were so ill-maintained that the shuttles groaned as they lumbered into their stops. I guessed that the city officials didn't want to spend money on the upkeep of the poor sectors. If I ever found myself in power after some incredibly unlikely chain of events, I'd do something about that. Fuse Tech's headquarters were in the middle of the tech district, and things were different here. As I walked toward the office, I heard voices behind me. I turned around and saw a woman standing at the door of a shuttle. She had a pram next to her, and the baby inside was asleep. "I don't see why you can't just let me on," she said, looking up. The shuttle driver shook his head. "Your pass was declined. You don't have the CR." "I swear there's some on here." The woman looked desperate now, and her baby had started to stir. She waved her CR card at the driver as though she could shake credits out of it. "It's not me," said the driver, tapping the card reader in front of him. "If there's a mistake, then blame the machine. Right to head office. But if I let you on, it's my head on the block."
So here's the truth of it. This was a tough book for me to review. I really just keep trying to find a really good, short lit RPG story. Something that's under 5 hours that you can listen to and yet still be amazed by and wowed by, okay? And so far I keep coming up short. No pun intended with the short story stuff. The issue that I have with the story is that the story is probably pretty decent, but the narration is of such meh quality that it lowers the potential of the tale itself. The reading style is solidly mediocre and mostly monotone in its melody. The story itself is set in the future where you get entry into the game called Refuse, and you only get it one time. You get to play as long as you can until you die, and then once you're dead, you're dead. You're out. You don't get a second chance. No new do-overs, nothing like that. You're done. Get out of here, so long. And you pretty much have to settle into a crappy life because you either go into military service and then go into some preordained, predestined job that they choose for you, or you have to pass a qualifier to get into a really good job. And most of the people that play this game play it so that they can earn money and not have to take the crappy jobs later. So basically, the players who play are the ones who need the money in the first place. And so you don't get to go back. Okay, that's just it. There's no do-overs at all. Now, the bad thing is, for the main character, he makes it inside the game for 1 hour before being killed. And he's only killed because he's sent to an area that's level 70, even though he is level 0. Now, this is a glitch on the people that put him into the game in the first place, the station that he goes to. So he protests, but it all falls on deaf ears, and he is kicked to the curb and told, "Don't come back. We don't need you. See you later. Bye." So he's pretty much downhearted. He's a broken person, and he just kind of wonders what he's going to do because his father has lost his job, or at least has lost his income due to an injury. He has no health insurance. And the next thing you know, he gets a mysterious note that leads him to a place he can re-enter the game under another identity. and he does so. Now, the cheat pretty much is there. His motivation is there to get credits for his family. The problem is that in order to do anything in this world, you kind of have to use credits, and that includes using internet, researching, watching TV, whatever it is. And his family doesn't have the money for that, so he never really got to research the game in the first place. Going in, he is a complete and utter noob, and that is the one part that makes this really believable for me. Because he's poor and he has no credits, he can't look anything up. This is one of those things where he has no idea what to do. He has no idea what his options are, skill-wise, magic-wise, so forth, class-wise. Nothing he does makes sense if you were a regular player or you had a chance to study things. He doesn't, okay? And he doesn't do a lot of stupid, generous things that get him in trouble. But if you look at his character, there's a scene in the beginning of the book where he helps a woman on a bus who has not enough money to transport herself and her baby home. And he donates his money to get her back to where she needs to be. So he's very altruistic. And this really sets the tone and lets you know what kind of a man he is, okay? He'll sacrifice himself to help others. And he takes risks that will allow him to help others, even if they've been bad to him in the past. So he doesn't think with his head, he thinks with his heart. So, you could say that he's really stupid, but I think he's more of an emotional person, and he's driven by his heart more than anything. And that's characterized basically by his utter, complete anger and desire for revenge against the person that killed him in the first game. So you'll see it really works out. Like I said, William's narration is unexcitingly weak. It lacks any real impact at all. It's kind of like someone in need of sleep trying to read you the business section of a newspaper while it's upside down. You're not going to get very far, okay? It's not so bad that I wanted to plug up my ears, but it was a short book, okay? And I didn't have to listen all that long. And there have been books I've stepped away from, and you know it. But this one here, it was just short enough that I didn't have to, call in for, an EMT to help me from brain bleed. There is a follow-up book to this, and it's called Tinker Tailor Giant Dwarf, which I've already purchased. So I may review it in the future. It's just going to be a little bit further out. He also has another book, which is with a different narrator, called The Scout of Artemis or Aramis. And I'll probably do that one before I do the Tinker Tailor book, just because it's a different narrator. And so I want to see if his writing style meshes up with the narration and gives you a really good story. Because to me, this place kind of falls apart when it comes to the narration. It could have been a lot better, but the narrator just didn't really do it for me. So final score for this one is 4.5 stars. It could have been a real gem, but the narration was the major flaw in this diamond. All right, the next up is The Glass Bard by Daryl DeSeal Reiser, narrated by Scott Servan, and the length is 1 hour and 11 minutes.
High school physics. A cat leaping at you at 30 miles an hour doesn't slow down because you kill it. It keeps moving at 30 miles an hour until gravity and friction slow it down. Or until it body slams a dumbass that stabbed it. Tomorrow, my ribs were going to complain about how I just stood there and let it hit me instead of sidestepping. At the time, I hadn't been thinking about physics or tactics. I'd been too shocked by the girl. The girl who had either continued running while I slowed the giant cat down, or was now somewhere behind me in the dark watching me wipe the blood off my blade on the animal's fur. I tried to remember if she'd been armed, but all that came to mind was the naked flesh gleaming in the firelight. "I'm going to turn around now," I drawled, trying to keep my voice friendly. "There's going to be a big-ass knife in my hand, but I don't intend to use it on you. I'd appreciate it all to hell if you didn't try to kill me, ma'am. I've about had all the fighting I want for one night." I was glad I'd said it. The girl was about 3 feet away from me, holding her own knife. It was about a third the size of mine, but a 6-inch blade can go all the way through most people's bellies and stick out the other side a bit. She looked like she'd been thinking about stabbing me in the back and hadn't quite made up her mind yet.
Now, this is a weird little story that runs for just over an hour, but it feels like it's about twice that time. The story is about a main character who's a PC who wants to help an NPC while stuck in some MMORPG. You got that? Okay, let me flesh that out for you. The MC falls into a game tutorial, and he meets Sai, an NPC. She is not only an NPC, but she's also the tutorial guide. And within minutes of meeting the named Bard, okay, she tells him just how many times she has been raped by one player and sold into slavery by others. She is surprised to learn that he, the main character, is self-aware when he is also back at his desk clicking away on his keyboard, or at least that's what he's supposed to be doing. There are a few problems with this audiobook, and runtime isn't one of them, and you might say, why in the heck are you reading or listening to a book that has 1 hour to it? Well, first off, I don't shy away from long books, so why would I shy away from a short one? A short story can be just as impactful, sometimes more impactful than a 24-hour length book. So I was really hoping that when I got this, it would be a great opportunity to get a LitRPG short story. Hopefully something with a cool premise or a world. And I'm going to say this, I've been waiting to really get a good Bard story for a long time. Little known facts, Bards, when done right, can be fun as hell. And I referred you to the Bard in Quag Keep. Yet again, I keep going back to the older books by Andre Norton. When done wrong, they come across as a wannabe singer for a Carpenter's cover band. Man, I hope you guys are old enough to know who the Carpenters are. Anyway, here, I never really got to see the Bard do much Bard stuff. I mean, he kind of sings a little to speed along his journey, and he sings to a few people, but there was really no Bard magic at play here at all. I mean, none. The most clever thing I saw that was done in the story was the use of the autosave. The rest of the story itself is basically the Bard being a complete gentleman to a slave companion and doing everything from sleeping in an uncomfortable chair for her to be willing to throw away his very life for her, who was nothing more than a computer-generated character, his real, actual life. There's no reason for this. He literally makes no connection to her or with her to the point where he should be willing to die. But hey, plot points. I know how that goes. You need to have something, but I really wish they'd have shown something more than him just saying, I feel really bad that she's been mistreated, so I'm going to sacrifice myself. Aside from some overwrought angst or unrealistic sympathy, I couldn't see a reason for such an instant and automatic willingness to sacrifice. The only reason that I could logically conceive of was he had been the player that had raped her 200 times and had logged in under somebody else's profile, and now he felt really bad. Otherwise, he's got no connection to her. The narration is rife with background static. I will tell you that. The narration by Servan serves nobody here. This is mediocre work at best. Mediocre talent. Let me tell you, I can allow some mispronunciations, but there are certain words that I will not let slide. Given the work that I do with blood vessels all day long, and with this particular beast especially, I have to say I could not believe that he pronounced the carotid artery as carotid. Yep, you don't have a carotid artery. You, like Bugs Bunny, have a carotid artery. Like I say, carotid. Nothing horrible, but this is the sign of a low-level narrator. If you can't pronounce something simple, you really just don't have it. If you don't know how to pronounce it, look it up. There's 1,000 words you can go look up, and I'll have Audible for it. Look it up. His delivery is most likely responsible for the low score, because he doesn't bring this story to life at all. But he sure as hell shoots it in the foot. Given the right voice work, this story might not have been so bad. If there had been some emotion to it, I might have been able to say, okay, I can understand the Bard's reaction. If the female had felt more realistic or evoked empathy for me, for her, maybe I would have felt that, and I could have said, I can totally see where he's coming from. But I didn't get that at all. And in this case, in case you're wondering, he's called a glass Bard because eventually he realizes that he is just like a glass tank, okay? A character who packs a good punch but shatters when hit. The only problem is we never really see him pack a powerful punch to account for his tank accreditation. Lack of a real Bard action in a Bard story, mediocre narration, and some audible issues leave me no choice but to go with 4 out of 10 stars. Really would really like to go to 3.5, but I think the Audible kills this story more than it helps. So clean it up, change narrators, and you might have better, but 4 out of 10.